Okay. So today we're happy to have as our featured presenter Chris Delatorre, who will give a rundown of exciting changes to the TechSoup community forums slated for next year, and share on his work and recent events in New York and Istanbul. Chris is an independent communications consultant for science, and let me actually copy this as I go too. Chris is an independent communications consultant for science, technology, and global philanthropy initiatives, including Wings and TechSoup Global. So you can find him over at the TechSoup forums. And Chris is a writer, an editor, and content producer, a storyteller with chops in hard and social science. Chris's previous experience in he's a systems junkie, specifically built environments and social structures. His multimedia resource, Compass, was named Model Program by the U.S. Department of Education. And Chris has previous experience in pharmacogenomics and human rights activism. I know there's a word. And human rights activism. Yeah. And his current research focuses on creating a framework for distributed social networking for CSOs. And he is invested in
very sloppy word, especially if you're researching.
He is interested in communicating the viability of science and emerging technology as they relate to sustainable urban development and social relations. And lastly, he's a New Yorker, a dog lover, caffeine freak, zombie hunter, and sci-fi geek. He believes in the power of science, empathy, and community. And with that, I'll let you take it from here, Chris. And thanks for being here.
Okay, so we're gonna get right into my presentation then.
Sure.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so first off, it's great to be here. I was just saying that word pharmacogenomics is very sloppy. It's even sloppier if you're doing the work, if you're in the laboratory trying to do the work, because what we were basically doing with that is trying to understand the human genome on a personal level so that we could personalize medicine rather than go through all of these really messy clinical trials and kill a lot of people and going through those clinical trials. So yeah, that was at the very beginning when we first cracked the genome. We were doing that work. Pretty exciting time. So hi everybody. It's great to be at Nonprofit Commons. Now first I want to thank Rhiannon Chatnoir for inviting me to the Nonprofit Commons Amphitheater. It's my first time in Second Life. So, well, not my first time, but, it's my third time now or fourth time. And I haven't spent a lot of time here, so I'm still sort of learning the ropes. But it's great to have the Rhiannon's been extremely generous with her time here and helping me to assimilate to my new body. And I actually flew for the first time this week, and I have to say I love it. So that said, I haven't quite fallen from the nest yet, so bear with me if I stumble a bit. So Rhiannon, thank you. And is Glitteractic a cookie here? I'm not sure if... Okay. Yeah, there's a lot going on today. I just saw that we have like 3 or 4 events happening today. Well, I just wanted to thank her actually for getting me into Second Life. As you know, Susan Tenby, aka Glitter Actica Cookie, aka Susan Tenby, in the other world. Um, she shared a Business Insider piece in April, in the TechSoup sort of stream that got me thinking about how we might factor virtual reality into the new vision for the TechSoup community that's taking shape for next year and beyond. So there are a few aspects to building the community we'll be talking about. And as you know, Susan knows a lot about the history of the forums. So we'll want her advice on features and strategies as we play with them and eventually roll them out next year. So, a big shout out to Susan for all of you who know her. And all of you, really, we'd like for our community and for anyone who is interested in knowing more about the TechSoup Community Forum to really get involved as we go forward. And I'll give you a few pointers later. One is a survey So I'd like to take a tally at some point during the meeting or after of those of you who are interested in maybe giving us, your take on what you'd like to see the forums become. So let's get right into it. Let me just whiz right around here so I can click the next slide. Uh, oh, good. There we are. All right, there I am. Now I'm not sure if you got my. Let's see. There we go. Wait. There we go. So I'm not sure if you know where to find me, but here are my links. You can learn more at about.me and my full name, or you could connect with me on Twitter. I like to share a lot of cool links on Twitter too, so feel free, hit me up anytime. So let's get right into it here. Sorry. Here we go. All right. So first, a little bit about me. Um, Communications consultant. I have 10 plus years in print research, new media. I've done private, public, and social initiatives based in New York, born here, grew up in New York and New England. So that's me, it's Skinny, and thanks for introducing my work there. Now, first, as a kid, I always loved, like, I was obsessed with dioramas. I loved toy trains. I loved anatomical models. I also was a big sort of outer space fan. I was into Star Wars. I was into Star Trek. Also, my brother and I got into a few early computer simulators. And this was before the internet kind of blew up, so we were super, super young. And he was just like this genius. He was taking apart like Commodore 64s and 120s and putting them back together again and doing all this weird stuff. And I was just watching him do it. But I would get into the whole fictional spaces with him, and we would explore these new worlds using simulators. And we actually like used graph paper. I remember for one simulator, Starflight. I don't know if anybody has used that one, but it was really exciting to chart these new worlds and kind of figure out, how certain things in real life could play online. And so that's why I'm like really excited to dive into this Second Life experience, because I think it will literally revolutionize the space going forward. And I'd like to see how we can pull some of that into the forums community plans that we have. So exploration definitely always interested me. I started my professional career as a genetic scientist, specifically pharmacogenomics research in the private sector. We use proprietary technologies to personalize medicine. And this is when I first began to see how biological systems principles also work with non-biological structures. So, for instance, the metabolism of the city, that's something that I've been thinking of a lot lately because of urban sustainability initiatives that are going forward. We're going to have to figure out how all of the different elements of a city work, because we're going to have 6 billion plus people living in cities by 2050. It's going to be like two-thirds of the global population at that point. And we're seeing a huge migration of people into cities worldwide, especially in Africa or rather in Asia and Latin America, and actually Africa too has a lot of growth right now. So things like that, like natural forces, biotic versus abiotic factors in community development, natural versus man-made conditions, that kind of thing. So now, many years later, in addition to TechSoup, I manage editorial and content for a global membership association, Wings. It's a meta network, actually, that represents 20,000 philanthropic entities. Um, a lot of those same principles still apply here, and my work has really shown me how the world is a lot smaller and actually a lot bigger than you think. So, I feel like we can pull a lot of those biological principles, the science principles, into what we do every day on a network kind of level, global philanthropy level. Um, so it's an exciting time, really. In between that, I've done a lot of editorial work, messaging, storytelling, lots and lots and lots of activism, which I know some of you in this room are very involved with and passionate about. Some more organized. I was at Land Illegal here in New York, marriage equality campaigns, trans campaigns, youth, GLISTEN, that kind of thing. We had a nice coalition of partners going. We really started to gain momentum with marriage, with marriage equality in the U.S. around 2008, and there had been things that had been done before that, but 2008 really we started to gain momentum, and this was before Prop 8. We had just one California when I came on board with Land Illegal. Back then it was state by state, and it was a lot of sweat, a lot of cross fingers, a lot of prayers if you're into that sort of thing. Um, but it just goes to show that how ensuring individual agency is a big deal to me. I really take it personally, and I'm very passionate about giving people a voice and really seeing what kinds of issues matter to different people in different situations, different countries, um, from different cultures. And in early 2011, well, if you remember the Arab Spring, Egyptian revolution was early 2011, I think February, end of February. I was waking up sick every day uh, from the reports that I was hearing from Egypt, and sometimes I would get text messages or phone call, WhatsApp or phone calls or whatever. Just knowing that my friends were in that kind of situation was a pretty stressful kind of moment for me. And that was a really rough year. For that entire year was very rough for me on a number of different levels. I had lost a few friends that year, and just a lot of stuff was happening. So when this happened, it was just sort of like a really a big moment for me where I experienced a lot of growth, and kind of, if you raise the forest, if you will, and start brand new. That's pretty much what happened to me during that phase of my life. So empathy played a big role in my engagement during all of that, which is the point. And later, of course, with Occupy here in New York, it was a matter of bringing that story from Zuccotti Park here in the city to the mainstream media that had ignored it for weeks before the blogosphere forced the networks to cover it. So it was interesting, that whole period of time where you really you could really sense the power of grassroots engagement, because we literally forced the mainstream media to cover this issue because they had suppressed it for, I think it was almost 3 weeks. The mainstream media downtown had suppressed this story happening, but we were furiously writing about it, and then after a while they were just forced to pick it up. So then we started to talk about it. And as you know, since then it's just sort of become this global kind of phenomenon, and it's very controversial, but it's in the collective consciousness, which is why we wanted to do that. As forum community manager for TechSoup, I'm researching strategies with the team for engagement growth. And that actually includes new technology and a multi-task stakeholder platform, rather, that we have, that we're looking at, um, and which we'll actually get into in a minute. So as we'll see over the coming months, there is a lot of potential for our global brand to gain traction and really shape the discourse in many places in the world. And that's really what excites me the most about what we're doing here. I mean, the fact that we can really work the brand to shape the discourse, and really just push our mission through in that fashion, because really it's going to start from the ground up, right? That's what we're all about. Is about helping nonprofits and community initiatives through technology, with providing them with the technology they need to fulfill their missions and their goals. So there's lots more to me. So please connect with me online. Twitter's the best of the big social. If you want to follow me on Twitter, we have a lot of chats there, and I cover events there and post industry links and things. So, and I also have a blog, but you can choose. So please remind me that we met here when you're connecting with me, so I can sort of know where I met you, and put you in that list so I can follow up. So that's me. Now, briefly, what we'll cover. I might not need the full half hour, but I think we have a lot to cover. So I'd like to take some questions at the end if you have them. But so we'll go from there. If you need we can use the extra time for that. So first, a rough outline of next steps for the forums and a few ideas we have for the space that will benefit everyone and, of course, build a community in the process. And we'll take a few, we'll also talk about a few events later, but we'll get to those after the main. One is actually the recent Social Good Summit in New York. And I had a chance to interface with some of the Net Squared folks there, which was great. Eli Vanderglessen and some of the lead organizers. And two, the other event, actually two other events um, in New York, and then an event in Turkey on social media that you might be interested in. So we'll get to that at the end. So let's get to the next slide. So make sure we have time to cover everything here. All right, great. So the new platform. Um, Over the coming months, we'll be transitioning to a multi-stakeholder platform, so space where we will engage many different types of professionals and people and community leaders um, and nonprofits around a number of issues. Eventually, it will be an open platform where people can connect around their like interests, around technologies, new applications, community, nonprofit issues, things like that. Um, a big component of this will be a space where experts share their knowledge and answer questions on specific topics. So in that respect, it will be, we hope that it will be a go-to resource for community members to talk about new technologies and best practices and that kind of thing. So a nice thought space, nice space for thought leadership. If you think about what's happening, for instance, now with LinkedIn, where a lot of thought leaders are able to promote their messages and really connect one-on-one with people where they, you know, normally would not have that opportunity. That's something I think that we can definitely do in the forums, in this new forums platform, is sort of mimic some of those best practices from the big social media, um, cluster, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, use some of what's working for them and appropriate it, use it for our needs. The specifics of the platform are still on the table, so we're still in a growth phase now, which is great for everyone because it means that you all have the opportunity to lend your voices to the conversation and really let us know what you might think is a good idea or good innovative practices to pull in or something that you think is missing from other communities that you might want to see in TechSoup. Questions like who is this for? Who will be involved, how to integrate different types of content, will some content be members only, secret groups, that kind of thing. That's what we're thinking about right now, and that's why it's so exciting to meet folks like Eli, in person. We've been working together for months now, but in person and with the NetSquared team in New York last week to talk about, how we might use this space between events and meetups. And that's just one example. Uh, oh, good. Okay, great. Oh, yeah, and please, stop me if anyone has any questions that are urgent or anything. Please feel free to stop me. I just want to make sure I fit everything in here. Um, I did want to talk about some of our other initiatives too in house, like Nonprofit Commons, for instance, is one example. Net Squared is another. Caravan Studios, I know, and Susan can speak more to this, but Caravan has a number of hot apps going. You all may know some of those apps, like Safe Night. I think that's one big one that we use to place victims of domestic violence into hotel rooms during emergencies. It's like a crowdfunding app, and it's been very successful. And also Four Bells, things like that. These apps will inevitably form communities, right? So like a testing case studies, sex stories, stuff like that. We really want to create a space where we can facilitate some of those conversations, and it's a no-brainer. It's like it's under the TechSoup umbrella, and these are really important products that we're producing that are gaining traction. So we should definitely facilitate those conversations. the forum will be the best place for these new communities and subgroups to really take off. So I'm looking at how to integrate the brands that currently exist under the TechSoup umbrella into the new platform first, then a system for partners like maybe a brand exchange or a way to bring marginalized groups in, and specialized groups, right? I mean, some of these things we can do ahead of the full rollout. But we also need to give planning time to this, to organize it as best we can. Elements like tagging, branch structure, semantics, things like that, to give us an idea of what the nonprofit tech community at large is looking for from the forums. So we're running a survey now, and I'm not sure if that's actually available right now, but I'll make sure that Rhiannon can share that with all of you in a follow up, in another following session here, if it's not available right now. So we'll take a tally after to see who's interested in getting involved with that. So moving on. So we have some distinct spaces that will grow up around this new platform. One will be a chat zone, and this is still on the table, but we're fairly certain that these, we're going to want these spaces to sort of be distinct spaces that can grow up around each other. So we have three main ones that we're thinking now. One is a chat zone for topics like nonprofit tech, civil society, activism, digital engagement, best practices, that sort of thing, similar to a lot of what we already have in the forums now, but more nuanced. We're not sure what these spaces will necessarily look like right now, but that's the point, I think, to dive in with the general sense of what we want and see what grows up around these concepts. How the community shapes these spaces will be very important. And this will be where groups like Net Squared come in, and nonprofit commons, because ultimately these groups are driving this type of conversation. And even if these groups exist elsewhere in the in the metaverse, online, I feel like it's really good that we give these groups uh, their own branded kind of spaces within the community to really further a lot of, and to really up the visibility of our partnership as well, because we're all working together on this. So I think as many people know what we're working on together and how we're connected, the better. Things most of us talk about when we want to change the world. That's what space one will be. Um, but we all know that changing the world without technology is impossible at this point uh, in human history. So space number two, we're back to apps and products, which really drives the TechSoup brand as well. Because I mean, this is our main offering, right? We exist to facilitate the social sector with technology and best practices, and so that we can keep up with the innovations that are happening in the private sector beyond. A few branches here, lots of potential to grow the brand, I feel, and regain some of the trust we lost when the forums weren't so active. I mean, we went through a period of inactivity where a lot of people kind of fell out or dropped off, and technology, moved forward at such a fast rate that when we got back in, there were a few glitches that we had to kind of think about and work on. And now that's what we're doing. We're working on bringing that back up to speed so people can engage in a more meaningful and more seamless, more ubiquitous manner. Things like validation services, customer service, expanding the catalog. So we have sub branches for all of our products. These are and this is where Caravan Studios comes in as well, because we have a community built around that brand, and it's a pretty strong brand, right? I mean, we have apps like the ones I mentioned before. Oh, and there's See Click Fix. That's another one that I really like, which is another community app that I really love. We have hackathons, though, things like that. I mean, what's happening in that space is very exciting right now. And I believe, do you know about something called the generator, Rhiannon? that Karen was working on, where it was like this. Is
Hmm.
that still active?
Yep, and actually,
Okay, that's great because
Glitteractica is here now, so she's the pink cat kind of in front of you.
oh, great. I see you now. Hey, do not run hackathon. Oh, okay. Hey, how are you? How are you?
um,
Galactica. Yeah, so like the basically what I was saying with the hackathons was some of our idea generators, some of our partnerships or collaborations that we work on with outside groups. Those are the kinds of things that we can definitely talk about. We can bring those to the spaces. So we might not necessarily host these hackathons, but if or if other but if we're interfacing with other community groups in these areas, that's something that we might pull into the forums as a thread or a specific branch for community events that we might collaborate on, that kind of thing. So really, the options are endless, um, like a think tank, if you will. So we can carve out a space for projects like that, depending on how we organize things, the nomenclature. We could feature the apps with the products and have events and things like that. Um, and then we can also link it to civil society and activism, right? So to the other vertical, if you will, and have them connect to each other to encourage traffic between community events, things that are happening right now and the actual products that are facilitating those events, because that's how the two match up. Product launches are definitely one example, but we can also highlight technology we're using for actual events, or we can have some of our members, talk about the technology that they're using in their offices, for instance, the computers, the laptops, the servers, the security software, which programs are the hottest, what do our people trust and use most and why, that sort of thing. Um, so, you know, what I was going to say, I mean, one challenge with the current layout is keeping product threads organized. I've seen that's a major challenge, just keeping everything available at a bird's eye or at a glance. To a certain degree, yes, you'll have random posts and redundancies, but I think a big part of the restructuring might be to give our product partners, say Microsoft, Intuit, Adobe, Better World Wireless, or now Sparrow, actually, Better World Wireless, now Sparrow, giving them prime real estate so we can direct our community members to those conversations more efficiently, which will, I think, reduce frustration in the long term and confusion. And in the process, that may, if we're lucky, free up some space for other conversations, other threads. So, so space one is for civil society, best practices, community groups, events, more the conversation for conversation's sake space for current issues, like more fluid. And then space two would be more like for products, our donation program, but also our apps and other products, basically a driver for the business side of TechSoup, curated resources, conversations like product soup chats that we've had in the past, that kind of thing. We might want to bring those back as resources, best practices, tailored FAQs, and this brings us to the bridge, which is the third space, which we'll get into right now. And the third space, really, I feel like great things come in threes, right? So it would be really cool for us to sort of conceptualize this as a holy trinity. And I hope there's nobody in here who's going to be offended by that. Don't mean to offend by that, but sort of like a trinity where we could have the third space for experts. So basically, a place between the best practices, the how and the why, if you will, and the solutions, the products, the how and with what. So we have the why and then we have the with what, and we have these experts, this really great expert pool in the center of all of this. Really, I see this as a bridge where experts can offer advice on products and solutions, but also things like conflict resolution in the office, uh, how to onboard a new computer system, how do you ensure that people in the office are going to uh, they won't have their privacy you know their privacy rights that will be respected, and what do you do if someone, how do you actually mentor someone who is working out of the office for the first time, and handling, proprietary information on their home laptop or anything. I mean, how do you manage technology in a war-torn country, for instance, or cross-border relief during natural disasters, that kind of thing. I think if we really want to make the civil society element, we want to bring that more front and center, really, because that's going to be the conceptual bridge as we move more globally. Um, it's We see that civil society is facing challenges around the world now, right? The space for philanthropy is shrinking. Certain resources aren't there anymore. So we have to get more creative with how we share the information. And because TechSoup is essentially everywhere now, I mean, we're everywhere, we have a huge opportunity here to become, the number one thought leader in the nonprofit tech space. I mean, but beyond what we already do, to become like a household name, to be part of every facet of nonprofit technology worldwide. And it's ambitious, but I mean, look at where we are now. We're in almost every country now. It's really great that we have matured, that we've grown and matured this far. So that's an idea of the types of conversations that will be happening in the new platform. Um, I mean, it's we have a great foundation for it. I think it's basically what we have now, just more tailored, and as I said before, maybe a bit more nuanced. Uh, so the other part of this, I think, it's actually a huge part of our lives that goes unnoticed. It's mobile. I mean, and I hesitate to say that because there's so much that really goes into that word mobile, and I feel like we're between the developed and the developing worlds. We're really moving at different paces with regard to different types of technology, and it's not necessarily what you think. I mean, if you're looking at the developing world now, many countries, I mean, they're adapting to mobile much faster than the developed world. I mean, a lot of us are still sort of tied to our laptops and our desktops, and we're not as engaged with our mobile, or we don't have as responsive websites to use with our mobile and tablets, because a lot of the old models are working, so we haven't really had to make that leap. But in the developing world, where they're being outfitted with computers via mobile phones for the very first time, they're jumping right in, and they're really getting ahead of the curve with regard to mobile. So the new platform, I feel, and we're talking about how to implement this as well, because it's sort of a no-brainer, but obviously it's going to take time and resources and a clear vision of how we want to implement this. But it will have a mobile component, that will make talking to each other a lot easier. These days, we hear a lot about responsive content and responsive websites, meaning that what's displayed, the design of what you want people to read on their phones, and tablets mainly, but laptops too. It's making sure this content is made to fit their screen. Whatever experience they are having right now will be compatible with what we want to show them. That's the idea. So this concept of responsiveness spills over to engagement, I think. We must be responsive to how people naturally engage. So it's not just the design, it's also the engagement that needs to be responsive. This is basically in the line at the supermarket. This is on the train platform when you're waiting for the train, or you're on the bus between classes, or you're on your lunch break, you know, through scrolling through your phone, checking your notifications. We want to be right there, because there are going to be questions that you want answered, and there are going to be conversations that you want to join, um, and and also it's a nice way for us to stay relevant in the daily lives of our members, because when you walk away from the computer, it's very easy to forget that someone is there. But if you're always interacting with them in a creative way, no spam, just we're here, we have different things that we're talking about, and remember this conversation that you're involved with, or you remember that Microsoft software program that you're having trouble with, we have found a solution for you. Ding, 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 here we are. We want to be where people are, which right now is in the palm of their hand, right? So mobile is a big consideration too. Um, and actually, I mean, there's another aspect to this, uh, and I won't go into this in as much detail, but I feel like content is also a major part of this. And, we do have specialized streams of content now, the blog, and we have a wonderful uh, webinar, very successful. The blog's doing great. We have a number of things going at TechSoup. I mean, you have you have organic threads, which is what the forums are about really, is being more organic in the now. But you also have trending topics that might need a good seed in the forums. Um, or maybe you have a regular poster who wants to repost this great article, you know, they published last week. And then we have new things like that. We'll be looking at videos, like how to use videos more seamlessly, things like that. So this is one of sort of look at best practices and things that are really working for the the private sector social world, Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all those. We can see what's working for them and try and integrate some of those things into our daily practice going forward. Which actually is a good segue into the events that I wanted to talk about, and I'll be very brief with these, running out of time. Social Good Summit was very successful this year. So this is an annual event coordinated by Mashable here in New York, coordinated by Mashable, UN Foundation, United Nations Development Program, and also the Gates Foundation, although this year Gates wasn't on the masthead, so I'm not sure if they'll be back next year, if it was just sort of a one-year anomaly, but they're usually involved as well. And it's hosted by 92Y, a great Jewish organization here in New York. Great venue, a lot of great people every year. It's just fantastic. Eli was there with the Net Squared team, and they had an amazing time. I think it was their first time at this summit. I think this will be my third year, third or fourth, I think, third maybe. Is Tech for Good, and it has a youth spin. So, and there are global meetups. That's a big part. So you can physically sort of see at that moment how big uh, the movement is when people check in from other countries and you see all of those people cheering and waving, and they give updates on what's happening. It's a really great 2 days, and I encourage everyone here, if you have a chance to attend at some point, do it. It's in September every year, and you can get there through the Mashable. I can actually share. Let me share that. Do I have that? I don't think so. Oh, I don't have that link. I'll share it with everyone afterwards. You can get there um, through the Mashable website, Social Good Summit, Mashable/SGS, I think. So this year, celebrities and high profile leaders joined the discussions, basically to talk about what's next, like the next 15 years of Tech for Change, because as you know, we also had a huge momentous occasion, passing the SDGs, adopting the member states adopted the Sustainable Development Goals this year, and so we have this new program going forward the next 15 years that really looks at what the Millennium Development Goals did, but puts them in more of a sustainable sort of paradigm, so that we can basically work from the ground up. This time, a lot more people are involved, you know. So, I mean, it would be great. I feel like it would be awesome if TechSoup joined Social Good Summit at some point. I mean, when we're ready to roll out the new platform, this is something I've been thinking about. We would need to synergize around a particular topic or campaign, um, something with solid engagement, like story makers, for instance. That would be a good one. So depending on when the new platform goes live, this may be 2017. Maybe we can coordinate with the UN Foundation and secure presentation during those 2 days, and we can, have 10 minutes for our Story Makers campaign and have everyone rally around a specific thread or do something fun in the forums and have and sort of seed it that way. I think that would be a great opportunity for us. So I met with Eli and the Net Squared lead organizers. I was inspired to see the level of interest and the potential that we have to grow the community um, just from that single input. And there were, I think, 6 or 8 of us altogether, maybe 6, 7 of us. Lots going on there. And actually, side note, Eli and I are putting together a plan now that will integrate the two spaces, and we'll be presenting this plan uh, to the team to get their feedback. And so, maybe at some point, Rhiannon and I can come back and follow up with an update if, depending on how that goes. Hopefully, maybe before the holidays, but definitely after the holidays, we'll have something to talk about. Oh, and I have a link actually here that I want to share with everybody. Let me put this into the nearby chat. This is a Storify uh, that Eli put together for the NetSquared regional gathering. So sort of put faces to the names I just talked about, make it a little bit more personal. Um, so yeah, as I said, also in September was the UN summit where member states adopted the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I attended a number of side meetings, UNDP, OECD, Ford Foundation. Very, very, very fortunate to be able to sort of join those meetings and be a fly on the wall to see what's happening. I mean, while I was very disappointed to see certain things omitted in the finals. I mean, namely provisions for the LGBTQI community. Uh, since there were a lot more actors involved this time, I mean, 193 states, I think, I can't remember the exact number, but many nations involved, many governments involved, and it's a very contentious issue right now. As you all know, LGBTQI globally is a very, very contentious issue. And there were some people who just did not, we needed to soften the language, and unfortunately that was omitted. So in the equality or inequality SDG, I think it's 9 or 10, one of those, there isn't anything that really, verbatims protects LGBTQI or really works towards that. So overall, the adoption does mark a huge win for the SusDev community. Um, and I mean, in my opinion, I think it's an exciting new era for social good because it really opens up a lot of avenues that weren't there before. And I would like to see TechSoup take the lead on some of those. Uh, I mean, one big takeaway, for instance, was data. That's something that we can definitely contribute to that space. Stories, the importance of sharing information and capturing stories, and data visualization, storytelling, uh, a lot of that stuff that's happening right now. Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black, she's a new spokeswoman for the transgender community. She talked about data and the trans community. So, and there are a lot of holes there. We really don't have a lot of information in specific demographic right now. So that's one area I feel like we could really promote. And then Charlize Theron, actually, she spoke about AIDS and HIV education. She's South African, so that was very, very close to her being in Africa, seeing the developments with that there. Very emotional, actually, very emotional time with her. The idea is that we can do more, and I believe the TechSoup forums is the perfect place for us to take up these issues with our community, and it can be a beacon. So all of us who are involved and all of our friends and colleagues who we pull in, we can definitely be a beacon. Uh, so others who aren't involved and see us, working on these issues and involved in these issues can come in, and we can hook them with the technology. I mean, people need the technology. That's why they come to TechSoup, right? So there are a number of different entry points into TechSoup via the TechSoup forums, and I think that's what we'll be exploring over the next few months. The last event that I wanted to talk about was in Turkey. Kimse Yok Mu is an international NGO based in Istanbul. It carries out humanitarian aid and development in 100 plus countries. Each year it has a different theme. That this conference in May that I spoke at, was invited to speak at the International Conference on Social Media for Good. Last year was on peace building, and this year was on social media. So the aim of this conference was to basically highlight new theories and practices around using new social technologies, emerging technologies for the sector, for social good. My presentation offered a conceptual framework for a community-based social networking applications for CSOs, so like a distributed social networking application, as opposed to centralized, which is what we see with many of our social networks now. My hope is to develop a framework on a local level to basically pull in the actors to figure out who the actors are in that community and how we're going to pull in private and public sectors to use innovations and solid governance to design a system that works, so that we can move our cities and communities forward in a sustainable manner. So just knowing that TechSoup is present in all of these countries, and that we're taking an active role in the technological capacity of many community organizations in these countries. Just knowing that alone gives me hope that there's a chance for us to actually create a system of communication that works, because right now I believe that everything is just far too siloed. So that's also another topic that we can bring into the forums, and really sort of propel that forward. Give at some point those local communities in other countries a platform where they can come and meet. Give them each their own branded space. See how that takes off. Come on in. You want to join TechSoup? Um, you're doing great work, you're using our products. Here, let's give you a dedicated space so you can talk about the issues in your local region, because sometimes Facebook doesn't work. Sometimes the local, governments, it's really difficult to maintain a website on your own, or a host of different issues. Domains is another issue. I know Jerry Curry at NSET is working on the new domain solution, and .ngo, .ong, basically the English versus the Latin version of non-governmental organizations that will eventually sort of supersede the uh, .org, which has been in many cases sort of co-opted by different political organizations that are parading as social good organizations. So it's about making that space sort of more transparent and more reliable in the end. All of these, I feel, are very important topics, and what we're doing with the forums right now is just the beginning. There's so much to be done, and it's an exciting time, and I really, really, really hope that you all get involved, and that if you have any questions, please send them forward. But really, come to the forums now. Set up a profile, upload an avatar, put your bio in there. Let us know something about your nonprofit or tech experience, what you're doing right now. Even if you don't see a conversation or a thread or a branch that you want to dive into right away, I'm telling you, now is the time to get in, because once we gain momentum with some of these things, we're really going to need a grassroots team of individuals who are familiar with the forum's experience to really be our lifeline back to the old days, to say, okay, this is how far we've come forward. Hey, I came in right at the transition or right before the transition, so I can tell you dot, 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 and dot. And we can take that small community, that grassroots community that we're building now, and really build that. That's what I want to see. So there's a lot of room for growth. Um, so that's basically the gist. And I'm sorry, I think I went over by a little
Thanks.
bit.
It's okay. No, I mean, thank you, Chris, for coming. And I the nonprofit commons members kind of vary in regards to time here, but a lot have been here for years, sort of, and seen that evolution, and been there kind of side by side with Glitter, and have also kind of helped, um, and have at least awareness of that evolution of the forums too. So yeah, I think this could be an interesting opportunity, and I'm all for kind of cross collaboration of like what you said with NetSquared and nonprofit commons and like the forums, and how there's very similar kind of interests and goals, and that we could kind of work together on, and kind of help share information to the community. So I think those are all great things. And then we have a question. So from Loud Laugher, Chris, I may have missed this, but will the changes in the forums involve a change in the platform technology used for the forums?
James, yes, absolutely. That is a huge element. It's the largest element, really. I mean, there are a few things that are working in tandem, right? You have to work in branding, you have to work in engagement, but also technology. The technology component will need to be, yes, we're working on that for sure. We're looking at a number of solutions, and we've found a way forward that I think will be, people will like it.
Yeah,
So.
that's huge. So then what happens to, is there a way to transition over all the kind of older content and kind of knowledge share that's already been put through for all those years? Like, what
Oh
happens?
yeah, I mean we actually have people who are already working on that, because that's going to be a huge endeavor to transfer that information, the legacy, conversations and threads and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, but that for sure we won't lose any information.
Yep. And Glitter was adding into that, that they're considering a few platforms, and looking very seriously at one, and that this would be the fourth iteration of the forums platform. So that's kind of good to know for context.
Definitely. Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. Thank you for that.
And a question from Buffy: do you think TechSoup will ever promote our meeting here at the Nonprofit Commons for another form of connecting and collaborating? Which is a good one. I see us a lot
This is a good
as
one.
sort of as valid as like the Net Squared things. Where though distributed, we're like a community of nonprofit professionals, and in fact we kind of have a network of networks because we're so distributed. We're not just one. But I don't know your thoughts on that,
hmm
Chris.
Yes, I mean, I think I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth because I'm not the boss, but yes, of course. Like I feel like this is why not? Like this is, the forums are basically, and I feel like it's going to be, the sort of the new structure is going to be a little bit more facilitating for our partnerships across the board. So where we don't have any solid plans, on how we're going to do things, there are definitely ways for us to cross pollinate and to cross market. I mean, even now, like we can, Rhiannon and I, we've been talking about sort of how to cross promote, and that can certainly include, you know, a thread, a dedicated thread to what you guys are doing here if you have a special event coming up. I mean, yeah, talk to me.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And yeah, as Buffy mentioned too, at one point Nonprofit Commons was listed actually under the site, in the same way that like Net Squared was.
Hmm.
So and
Oh yeah, and glitter. Back to glitter. Mentioned that Caravan is a division of TechSoup. Absolutely. I mean, we have some really amazing brands that I see a lot of potential of bringing those together, and that's some of what I've been working on is conceptualizing that so I can bring it to the team to get some feedback.
great, great. So any other like last things before we kind of let Chris go, and then and hopefully have some time for Zinnia to chat too. So take care, Glitter, and anyone else who just was leaving.
Thanks, glitter. Take care.
And yeah, and let's thank Chris for being here. I mean, and hopefully this can be kind of a. I'm hoping that this is like an ongoing collaboration even between you on the forums definitely, and us on this side in nonprofit comments. we kind of meet here collectively, but then we all have our networks around the world since we are, geo distributed. So,
Hmm.
um,
Definitely. Well, I just want to say again, thank you everyone for having me, and thank you for being patient. I know I went over. I'm sorry for taking up a little bit extra of extra time, but I do hope that it was helpful, and that we can use this moment to really solidify our relationship going forward. Get some things moving. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you all soon. I'll come back in as soon as I get a chance.
yeah,
It's been
yeah,
great.
and definitely, whenever you want to come back, and even like I know you were chatting with Eli too. Eli has been here before and has an avatar as well, so you can even both come back, or however you want to sort it. You know, I think we all have kind of very aligned goals. So,
Oh, that would be great. And we just had another question for Wisdom Seeker, the register sign up. You can actually, here's the link to the TechSoup forums. And when you get there, there's a place where there's a link. I'm signed in right now, so I don't know exactly where that is. But you can see where you can sign up. I think it's the login sign up. And then that should guide you through. If you have any questions at all whatsoever, please let me know. Contact us. We'll clear those up for you.
great. All right.
And say hello. Like once you do register, go into the introduce yourself branch and say hello, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Very cool.
Thanks, James. All right, thanks everyone.
Okay. Well, have a great rest of your day, Chris. And yeah, thank
You
you.
too.
I'll share this recording with you once later on,
Please
and so
do.
you have that and the notes as well. And yeah, thank you. And just as wanted to mention, as Buffy was saying, yes, we've been doing this for almost 8 years now. These weekly meetings, so
Mm-hmm.
we're solid. So thanks again.
Fantastic.
Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you. See you all. Okay, I'm gonna teleport out of here now.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Bye bye.
Okay. I'm going to swap.